The day Lisa stepped into the gym, she hadn't expected anything more than a simple escape from her routine. Life had been monotonous for as long as she could remember, each day blending seamlessly into the next. Her husband, Matt, was kind and dependable but often distant, his focus more on his career than their marriage. Lisa, once madly in love, had felt their bond weaken over the years, the connection that once fueled their relationship now just a faint memory. So, when her friend suggested she join a gym to reclaim her life, Lisa had laughed it off. But later that night, as she lay awake in bed beside Matt, her friend's words lingered. She felt the weight of her own stillness pressing on her. It wasn't about getting in shape, Lisa thought. It was about finding anything to break the cycle. The next morning, she signed up. The gym was modern and sleek, with bright white walls and shiny equipment that reflected every ounce of sunlight streaming through the large windows. It smelled of fresh lemon cleaner and just a hint of chlorine from the indoor pool down the hall. Everything about the place felt vibrant, and as Lisa stepped inside, she realized she hadn't felt this alive in a long time. It wasn't long before she noticed Alex, one of the trainers, who seemed to be on duty almost every time she visited. He was tall and muscular, with a friendly smile that put new clients at ease. His confidence was magnetic, and she noticed how everyone in the gym seemed drawn to him. Lisa didn't think much of him at first, but over time her eyes began to linger, captivated by his easy charm. Lisa was used to blending into the background, her daily life a quiet routine of errands, chores, and endless evenings spent in front of the television. At the gym, though, she felt noticed. Alex would catch her eye from across the room, offering a smile or a wave, a small gesture that sent an unexpected thrill through her. One day, as she struggled with a particularly tricky weight machine, she felt a presence beside her. She glanced up to see Alex standing there, his hand outstretched to adjust the weights. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice smooth but not overly friendly, professional yet warm. Lisa felt her cheeks flush. "Oh, yes, please. I think I may have been doing this all wrong," she admitted with a sheepish smile. Alex chuckled, his gaze never wavering from hers. "Happens to the best of us," he said, moving in closer to adjust her form. His hands gently positioned her arms, and for a moment, Lisa was acutely aware of the space between them, or rather, the lack of it. "You're doing great," he said, his voice low. "Just keep that posture, and remember to breathe." Lisa exhaled, grateful for the reminder. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. Alex stepped back, crossing his arms as he watched her complete the exercise. She tried to ignore the flutter in her chest, but the feeling lingered, an electric charge that stayed with her long after she left the gym. Over the next few weeks, their interactions became more frequent. He'd wave at her from across the room, offer small tips here and there, and sometimes, during quieter moments, he'd linger by her machine to chat. Lisa knew it was all part of his job, that he was likely friendly with everyone, but she couldn't help but wonder if there was something more in the way he looked at her. As she grew more comfortable in the gym, Lisa found herself pushing her boundaries, experimenting with different workouts and challenging herself. Alex was always there, a guiding presence, subtly encouraging her without making her feel pressured. She began to look forward to their brief exchanges, feeling a sense of excitement that she hadn't felt in years. One morning, as she finished her workout, Alex approached her with a grin. "You're killing it, Lisa. I've got to say, you're one of the most dedicated people here." Lisa laughed, a little flattered. "I'm just trying to keep up with everyone else. I still feel like the newbie." "You're hardly a newbie anymore. Honestly, I think you're ready to start incorporating more advanced moves into your routine." He paused, giving her an appraising look. "If you're up for it, I'd be happy to give you some pointers, maybe even a personal training session." Lisa's heart skipped a beat. The idea of spending more one-on-one time with Alex was tempting, and the thought of having him guide her, of learning under his attentive gaze, was undeniably appealing. "That sounds amazing," but she hesitated, glancing around the gym. "I don't know if I could afford personal sessions right now. I'm just doing this to keep busy." Alex shrugged, his smile never faltering. "Don't worry about it. I offer free advice to my favorite clients," he added with a playful wink. Lisa felt her cheeks heat up again, and she quickly looked away, hoping he wouldn't notice. She cleared her throat, trying to regain her composure. Well, in that case, I'd love the help. They agreed to meet up that weekend, early in the morning, before the gym filled with the usual crowd. Lisa spent the next few days eagerly anticipating their session, counting down the hours and finding herself thinking of him more often than she cared to admit. When Saturday morning arrived, she chose her outfit carefully, opting for her favorite workout leggings and a fitted tank top. She told herself it was silly, that she was just meeting him for a workout. But deep down, she couldn't deny the excitement bubbling within her. Alex was waiting for her when she arrived, dressed in a casual t-shirt and shorts that highlighted his muscular physique. He greeted her with a warm smile, and for a moment, Lisa felt her breath hitch. There was something different about him this morning, something she couldn't quite place. They spent the next hour working through various exercises, with Alex guiding her through each movement, correcting her form, and pushing her to her limits. Every now and then, his hand would brush against hers as he adjusted her posture, sending a shiver down her spine. She tried to focus on the exercises, but her mind kept drifting, her thoughts swirling with a mix of excitement and guilt. As they wrapped up the session, Alex handed her a water bottle and grinned. "You did great today, Lisa. I think you're ready to tackle anything." Lisa laughed, trying to play it cool. "Thanks, Alex. I couldn't have done it without you." They stood there for a moment, the sounds of the gym fading into the background. Lisa felt a strange impulse to say something, to break the silence, but the words caught in her throat. "Hey, if you ever want some tips for setting up a home gym, just let me know," Alex offered, his voice soft. "I'd be happy to help." The words hung between them, a subtle invitation that seemed innocent on the surface but held an unspoken implication. Lisa felt her pulse quicken, her mind racing with possibilities. Impulsively, she smiled and replied, "Actually, that would be great. I've been meaning to set something up at home." The words left her mouth before she could second-guess herself, and she felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with trepidation. She didn't know why she had said it, why she was inviting him into her life beyond the gym. But in that moment, she didn't care. Alex's eyes lit up with interest. "How about I come by tomorrow? We can figure out what you need and maybe even set up a few things if you've already got some equipment." Lisa nodded, her heart pounding. "Tomorrow works for me." As they parted ways, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that she had just crossed an invisible line, one that could change everything. She knew she was playing with fire, but the thrill of it was intoxicating, a spark that had been missing from her life for too long. The rest of the day passed in a blur. She found herself replaying their conversation, wondering what he thought of her, if he saw her as more than just another client. The excitement she felt was undeniable, a pulse of energy that left her both exhilarated and anxious. That night, as she lay in bed beside her husband, she felt the familiar ache of loneliness settle in. She glanced over at him, his face relaxed in sleep, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within her. She wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between them, but the thought felt hollow, like an old habit she no longer believed in. Her mind drifted to Alex, to his easy smile and the warmth of his presence. She knew she was walking a dangerous path, but the pull was too strong to resist. Tomorrow, he would be in her home, in her personal space, and the thought sent a thrill through her that she hadn't felt in years. As she drifted off to sleep, Lisa wondered what tomorrow would bring and whether she was ready to face the consequences of her own desires. Lisa spent the entire morning preparing her house for Alex's visit. She told herself it was a practical thing. She wanted to be a good host, and she didn't want Alex to see the clutter that normally took over her living room. Yet, as she fluffed the cushions on the couch and arranged her workout gear neatly in a corner, she couldn't ignore the flutter in her stomach. The clock ticked closer to noon, the time they had agreed upon. She glanced at herself in the mirror, catching sight of her flushed cheeks and carefully chosen outfit. She had dressed casually, in form-fitting leggings and a tank top that was modest but flattering. She wanted to look good without seeming like she'd put in too much effort, though every small detail had been meticulously planned. As she heard a knock on the door, her heart leapt. Taking a deep breath, she opened it to find Alex standing there, looking effortlessly handsome in a plain t-shirt and athletic shorts. He grinned, and the warmth in his eyes made her pulse race. "Hey, Lisa, hope I'm not too early," he said, his tone casual but friendly. "Not at all," she replied, stepping aside to let him in. "Come on in." Alex stepped inside, taking a quick glance around her home. "Nice place." "It's cozy," he said, smiling at her as he looked around. His gaze lingered on the small space she'd cleared in the living room, where a few weights and a yoga mat were neatly arranged. "Thanks, I thought this area would be a good place to set up a few things," she explained, leading him over to the makeshift workout space. "Perfect spot," he agreed, crouching down to inspect the weights. "You've got a nice setup already. We could add a few things to round it out, maybe a resistance band, a small bench, or even a set of adjustable dumbbells. I can help you find some good deals." Lisa nodded, grateful for his expertise. She was still getting used to working out, and having him here guiding her felt oddly comforting. That would be great. "I honestly wouldn't know where to start." "No problem," Alex replied, glancing up at her with a grin. "That's what I'm here for." They spent the next hour going over different exercises, with Alex showing her how to properly use the weight she already had and explaining how the additional equipment would enhance her routine. His instructions were clear, his attention focused entirely on her, and Lisa found herself hanging on to his every word. After demonstrating a few exercises, he stepped back and motioned for her to try. "Give it a shot. Let's see if you remember everything." Lisa laughed, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. She positioned herself as he had shown her, doing her best to mimic his movements. As she went through the exercise, she felt Alex's hands lightly adjust her form, his touch sending an unexpected shiver down her spine. "You're doing great," he murmured, his voice close to her ear. "Just keep that posture and don't forget to breathe." His proximity was intoxicating, and Lisa found herself hyper-aware of every inch of space or lack thereof between them. She could feel his breath on her shoulder, the warmth radiating from his body, and for a moment, she felt completely engulfed in his presence. After a few more reps, she set the weights down, trying to calm her racing heart. She could feel his gaze on her, and when she looked up, their eyes met, a spark passing between them that neither of them could ignore. "Thanks for all the help, Alex," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. "Anytime," he replied, his voice low. "You're a natural." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Lisa felt an urge to step closer, to close the small gap between them, but a part of her resisted, a small voice in the back of her mind warning her of the consequences. "Maybe I should get us some water," she blurted out, breaking the tension. She turned and hurried into the kitchen, hoping the brief separation would help her regain her composure. As she filled 2 glasses with water, she took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She hadn't expected the simple act of working out with Alex to feel so intense, so charged with energy. When she returned to the living room, she found him examining one of her framed photos on the wall, a picture of her and Matt taken on their last vacation. "That's a nice photo," he commented as she handed him a glass of water. "You and your husband." Lisa nodded, her heart sinking slightly. The photo felt like a reminder of the life she was risking, a silent reproach that brought her back to reality. But even as she thought of Matt, the excitement she felt around Alex didn't wane. If anything, it grew stronger, the thrill of the forbidden fueling her desire. "He's away a lot for work," she said softly, her gaze drifting to the photo. "We haven't had a lot of time together lately." Alex looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said quietly. "That must be hard." "It is," she admitted, surprised by her own honesty. She hadn't intended to open up to him, but something about his presence made her feel vulnerable, like she could share her innermost thoughts without fear of judgment. They sat down on the couch, the comfortable silence between them slowly filling with a palpable tension. Lisa could feel her pulse quickening again, her thoughts spiraling as she imagined what might happen if she let herself give in to the feelings that had been building between them. Lisa, Alex began, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to overstep, but I feel like there's something here. Something between us. His words hung in the air, a confession that echoed her own unspoken thoughts. Lisa looked at him, her heart racing, torn between the pull of desire and the weight of her commitment to Matt. She knew she should say something, should end this before it went any further, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she found herself leaning closer, her gaze locked onto his. Her heart pounded in her chest as the space between them disappeared, and before she knew it, her lips were on his, a gentle kiss that quickly deepened into something more. The kiss was electric, igniting a fire within her that she hadn't felt in years. She felt alive, every nerve ending alight with sensation, her thoughts drowned out by the overwhelming intensity of the moment. Alex's hands found their way to her waist, pulling her closer, and for a brief, blissful instant, she let herself get lost in the passion that had been simmering beneath the surface. But as the kiss ended, reality came crashing back. Lisa pulled away, breathless and shaken, a mix of exhilaration and guilt swirling within her. She glanced at Alex, who looked equally stunned, his expression a mirror of her own conflicted emotions. I'm sorry, she stammered, her voice barely audible. I didn't mean to. Alex shook his head, his hand reaching out to gently touch her cheek. You don't have to apologize, Lisa. I feel it too. His words sent a thrill through her, but the guilt lingered, a heavy weight pressing down on her chest. She had crossed a line, one that couldn't be uncrossed, and the realization left her feeling both exhilarated and terrified. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what had just happened settling between them. Lisa knew she should say something, should find a way to explain herself, but the words wouldn't come. She was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, torn between the desire that still pulsed through her veins and the guilt that gnawed at her conscience. After a moment, Alex spoke, his voice soft but steady. Look, Lisa, I don't want to make things difficult for you. If this is something you don't want, I'll respect that. But if you feel the same way, then maybe we can see where this goes. His words hung in the air, a temptation that pulled at her, filling her with a sense of possibility she hadn't felt in years. She wanted to say yes, to give in to the desire that had been building between them. But the image of Matt loomed in her mind, a reminder of the life she had built and the risk she was taking. I don't know, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'm just so confused. Alex nodded, his expression understanding. Take your time, he said gently. I'm here if you need anything. No pressure. They spent the next few minutes in silence, sipping their water and stealing occasional glances at each other. Lisa felt a strange mixture of relief and disappointment, torn between the safety of holding back and the thrill of letting herself be vulnerable with Alex. As he finally stood to leave, she walked him to the door, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. She wanted to say something, to explain herself, but the words escaped her. Instead, she simply smiled and thanked him for his help, her heart aching as he gave her one last lingering look before stepping out the door. When the door closed behind him, Lisa leaned against it, her mind swirling with 1,000 thoughts. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a precipice, caught between the stability of her marriage and the thrill of something new, something forbidden. The memory of Alex's touch lingered on her skin, a reminder of the passion that had ignited between them, and as she stood alone in her quiet home, she realized that nothing would ever be the same. After that first kiss with Alex, Lisa's days passed in a haze of confusion, longing, and guilt. She couldn't forget the feel of his lips on hers, the way her pulse had raced when he touched her, and the way she'd felt alive, free, in his presence. But the memory was tinged with a profound guilt that weighed on her whenever she was with her husband, Matt. For the next few days, she tried to avoid Alex at the gym, hoping that if she distanced herself, the feelings would fade. She convinced herself that it had been a moment of weakness, a fleeting lapse in judgment. But despite her best efforts, her thoughts kept returning to him. Every glance at her phone, every moment alone in the house, she felt the pull of desire, a longing that she couldn't seem to shake. It didn't help that Alex wasn't one to let go so easily. He texted her, short messages that seemed innocent but carried an underlying intensity. At first, she ignored them, hoping he'd take the hint. But when she saw him at the gym again, his gaze lingering on her as he greeted her with a warm, familiar smile, her resolve crumbled. The unspoken connection between them was undeniable, and she felt powerless to resist it. One afternoon, as she was leaving the gym, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Alex. "Meet me tomorrow after your workout. I'll wait by the back entrance." Lisa stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She knew what he was asking, what it meant if she agreed. Her mind raced, a flurry of doubts and fears. But beneath it all was a thrill, a longing that overpowered her hesitation. The next day, she found herself dressing with more care than usual, her mind replaying their kiss, the feeling of his hands on her. She chose an outfit that hugged her curves, simple yet alluring, and applied a touch of makeup, telling herself it was just a normal day, but deep down she knew it wasn't. After her workout, she found Alex waiting for her as promised, leaning casually against the wall by the back exit. He looked up as she approached, his expression warm but laced with a hint of something darker, more intense. She felt her pulse quicken as she neared him, her mind racing with anticipation and fear. Without a word, he took her hand, leading her to his car. The silence between them was charged with tension, the air thick with unspoken promises. They drove in silence, the city lights blurring past them as they left the familiar streets behind. Lisa didn't ask where they were going. She didn't want to know. All that mattered was the here and now, the pull of the moment, the fire that burned between them. They arrived at a secluded spot on the outskirts of the city, a quiet, hidden area where they wouldn't be disturbed. Alex parked the car, and for a moment they sat in silence, the only sound the soft hum of the engine. Lisa felt her hands trembling, a mixture of fear and anticipation swirling within her. Alex turned to her, his gaze intense, and in that moment, all her doubts faded away. She leaned into him, their lips meeting in a kiss that was both tender and passionate, a culmination of all the tension that had been building between them. His hands traced gentle paths along her arms, pulling her closer, as if he, too, couldn't bear to let her go. They spent the afternoon together, their bodies tangled in a dance of passion and desire, the world around them fading into oblivion. Lisa felt free, unburdened by the expectations and responsibilities that had weighed on her for so long. In Alex's arms, she felt like a different person, someone she had forgotten she could be. As the sun began to set, they lay together in the car, wrapped in each other's warmth, a comfortable silence settling between them. Lisa felt a pang of guilt, a reminder of the life she was risking, but she pushed it away, telling herself that this was just for now, a momentary escape. She'd return to her life, to Matt, and things would go back to normal. But as she looked at Alex, at the way he smiled at her, a glint of mischief in his eyes, she realized that things would never truly go back to how they were. She was in too deep, and there was no turning back. The affair continued in stolen moments and whispered secrets, their meetings hidden from the world. They found solace in each other's arms and escape from the lives they felt trapped in. Lisa knew she was playing with fire, but the thrill, the excitement, was too intoxicating to resist. She became adept at making excuses, weaving lies to cover her tracks. She'd tell Matt she was meeting friends, running errands, or staying late at the gym. At first, the guilt was overwhelming, but as the days passed, it dulled, replaced by a sense of exhilaration that left her craving more. One evening, as she lay in bed beside Matt, she found herself thinking about Alex, about the way he made her feel alive, vibrant. She glanced at her husband, his face relaxed in sleep, and felt a pang of regret. She knew he deserved better, that he trusted her, and that she was betraying that trust in the most profound way. But the thought of ending things with Alex filled her with a sense of loss, a hollow emptiness that she couldn't bear. Their meetings became more frequent, their passion intensifying with each encounter. They'd find secluded places to meet, away from prying eyes, their stolen moments a brief reprieve from the constraints of their lives. Lisa felt alive in a way she hadn't in years, the thrill of the forbidden fueling her desire, her need for something more. But as the affair continued, the cracks began to show. Lisa became more paranoid, more cautious, afraid of being discovered. She knew she was walking a fine line, that one wrong move could shatter everything. She began to avoid certain people, distancing herself from friends and family who might notice the change in her. One afternoon, as she was preparing to leave the gym, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to find one of her friends, Sarah, giving her a concerned look. "Hey Lisa, are you okay?" Sarah asked, her gaze searching. "You've seemed different lately." Lisa forced a smile, hoping it would mask the guilt that gnawed at her. "Oh, I'm fine. Just busy, you know?" Sarah didn't seem convinced. "I get it, but just be careful, okay? Sometimes people can get hurt when they don't expect it." The words hit Lisa like a punch to the gut, a stark reminder of the reality she was hiding from. She laughed it off, but the fear lingered, a shadow that followed her even after she left the gym. As she drove home, her mind raced with thoughts of what she was risking. She knew she couldn't keep this up forever, that eventually something would give, but as the memory of Alex's touch filled her mind, she couldn't bring herself to end it. The pull was too strong, the thrill too intoxicating. One evening, as they lay tangled in each other's arms, Alex turned to her, his expression serious. "Lisa, what are we doing?" he asked, his voice low. "I don't want to be just a secret. I want more." Lisa felt her heart clench. She hadn't expected this, hadn't thought that Alex would want anything beyond their stolen moments together. She had convinced herself that it was just a fling, something fleeting and harmless. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw the depth of his feelings, the intensity that mirrored her own. I don't know," she whispered, her voice trembling. Alex reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I don't want to pressure you, Lisa, but I need to know if this means something to you. If I mean something to you." His words echoed in her mind, a question that she couldn't ignore. She knew she had to make a choice, to either end things with Alex or risk everything for a chance at something more. The thought filled her with fear, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. As she looked at him, at the way he held her, she felt a surge of emotion, a longing that she couldn't deny. She wanted him, wanted the life they could have together, free from secrets and lies. But the image of Matt lingered in her mind, a reminder of the life she was risking, the trust she was betraying. "I don't know, Alex," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I need time. I need to figure things out." Alex nodded, his expression pained but understanding. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here, waiting." They spent the rest of the evening in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Lisa knew that she was standing on the edge of a precipice, caught between the life she had and the life she wanted. And as she lay beside Alex, her heart torn in two, she wondered if she'd ever be able to make the choice that would set her free. Lisa returned home that night, her mind racing with the weight of her decision. She knew she couldn't keep living this double life, couldn't continue to deceive Matt and hurt the man who had once been her everything. But the thought of letting go of Alex, of giving up the passion and excitement he brought into her life, left her feeling hollow. As she slipped into bed beside her husband, she felt the distance between them more acutely than ever. She wanted to reach out to bridge the gap, but the memory of Alex's touch lingered, a reminder of the fire that had ignited within her. She was caught between two worlds, two lives, and she knew that whatever choice she made, someone would get hurt. But for now, all she could do was wait, caught in the pull of desire and the weight of regret, her heart torn between the safety of the familiar and the thrill of the unknown. As the weeks went on, Lisa found herself becoming increasingly paranoid. Each time she and Alex met, it felt like a roll of the dice, a dangerous game where one wrong move could expose everything. She could sense the strain in every secret glance, every hurried embrace, the constant fear of discovery casting a shadow over their moments together. The thrill she once felt was now tinged with a constant undercurrent of fear. She found herself checking her phone obsessively, deleting messages, double-checking her alibis. She felt like she was living two lives, one with Alex, thrilling and unpredictable, and another with Matt, safe yet distant. But with each passing day, the two worlds drew closer to colliding. One evening, As Lisa returned home after a stolen hour with Alex, she was greeted by a question from Matt that made her heart nearly stop. "You've been working out a lot lately," he remarked, his tone casual but laced with suspicion. Lisa forced a smile, shrugging off the comment. "Yeah, I guess I just wanted to feel healthier. I've been taking it seriously." Matt nodded, but his gaze lingered on her, a flicker of doubt in his eyes that she hadn't seen before. She felt her pulse quicken, a surge of anxiety washing over her. She was sure he couldn't know she'd been so careful, but his eyes held a weight that unsettled her, a silent accusation that left her feeling exposed. From that moment on, Lisa became hypervigilant. She avoided leaving her phone unattended, kept her meetings with Alex brief and discreet, and constantly monitored her for afraid that any slip could be the one to give her away. One evening, while she was at home, her phone buzzed with a text from Alex. She glanced at it, her heart pounding as she read his message. "I miss you. Can we meet tomorrow? I'll find somewhere private." She quickly typed a response, her fingers trembling. "Can't. Matt's getting suspicious. Let's lay low for a few days." She deleted the messages immediately after sending them, her heart racing. She hated the feeling of secrecy, the constant need to cover her tracks, but she knew that meeting Alex was too risky, that even the slightest mistake could unravel everything. Despite her precautions, the tension between her and Matt grew. He seemed more distant, more guarded, his eyes carrying a suspicion that she couldn't ignore. It was as if he could sense the change in her, the shift that had taken root since she had started seeing Alex. One night, as they were sitting together on the couch, Matt turned to her, his expression serious. "Lisa, is there something going on?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. Lisa felt her heart race, panic clawing at her as she struggled to keep her composure. She forced a laugh, shaking her head. "No, Matt, of course not. Why would you even think that?" she replied, trying to sound casual. He looked at her, his gaze piercing. "I don't know. You just seem different, distant." Lisa swallowed, her mind racing as she scrambled for an explanation. "I guess I've just been stressed lately. Maybe I need to take a break from the gym, focus on us." Matt seemed to accept her answer, but the doubt lingered, a shadow that loomed over their relationship. Lisa knew she couldn't keep this up forever, that eventually something would have to give. A few days later, Lisa received a call from Alex, his voice tense and urgent. "We need to talk," he said, his tone clipped. "It's important." Lisa felt a surge of anxiety. She knew that whatever he had to say wouldn't be easy to hear, but she agreed to meet him, hoping that they could find a solution. They met in a secluded spot at a nearby park, hidden from view by a grove of trees. Alex looked tense, his expression serious as he greeted her. "Lisa, I don't know if I can keep doing this," he began, his voice low. "I feel like I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, worried about getting caught." Lisa felt a pang of guilt, her own fears mirrored in his words. She knew that he was right, that they were both taking a risk that could destroy everything, but she couldn't bring herself to end it, to let go of the passion that had reignited a spark within her. "I know, Alex. I feel it too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't know if I can just stop." Alex looked at her, his expression torn. "What do you want, Lisa? Do you want to keep living a double life, hiding every time we're together? Or do you want something real, something we don't have to hide?" His words hit her like a blow, a painful reminder of the choices she had made. She felt a surge of frustration, a sense of helplessness that left her feeling trapped. She wanted both the thrill of the affair, the excitement of being with Alex, and the stability of her life with Matt, but she knew she couldn't have it all, that eventually she would have to choose. "I don't know, Alex," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm so confused. I don't want to lose you, but I can't just walk away from my marriage." Alex sighed, his expression pained. "Then maybe we need to take a step back, figure out what we really want." They parted ways that day, the tension between them unresolved, a painful silence that lingered long after they said goodbye. Lisa knew that the affair was unraveling, that the weight of their secrets was becoming too heavy to bear. She felt a sense of loss, a hollow emptiness that left her feeling adrift, uncertain of where to turn. As the days passed, Lisa tried to focus on her marriage, to bridge the growing gap between her and Matt. She spent more time at home, avoiding the gym, and distancing herself from Alex in an attempt to salvage her relationship. But the memories of their time together lingered, haunting her in quiet moments, a reminder of the passion she had left behind. One evening, as she was sitting alone in the living room, Matt approached her, his expression serious. "Lisa, we need to talk," he said, his voice heavy with a weight that she couldn't ignore. Lisa felt a surge of anxiety, her heart pounding as she looked up at him. She knew that whatever he had to say would be difficult to hear, that the truth she had been hiding was on the verge of being exposed. "I know something's been going on," Matt began, his tone measured. "You've been distant, secretive, and I can't shake the feeling that you're hiding something from me." Lisa felt her pulse quicken, a surge of panic washing over her. She tried to find the words to deny it, to deflect his suspicions, but the weight of her guilt was too heavy, a truth that she could no longer ignore. "Matt, she stammered, her voice trembling. He looked at her, his expression a mixture of hurt and anger. "Just tell me the truth, Lisa. I deserve that much." Lisa felt a tear slip down her cheek, her heart breaking as she realized that there was no way to salvage the situation. She had betrayed him, had risked everything for a fleeting moment of passion, and now, the consequences of her actions were laid bare. "I'm sorry, Matt," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I never meant for it to go this far." The silence that followed was heavy, a painful reminder of the damage she had done. She could see the hurt in Matt's eyes, the betrayal etched across his face, and she knew that nothing she could say would make it right. For a long moment they sat in silence, the weight of her confession settling between them. Lisa felt a wave of regret, a sense of loss that left her feeling hollow. She knew that she had destroyed the trust that had once bound them together, that her actions had irreparably damaged their relationship. Finally, Matt spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need some time, Lisa. I need to figure out what this means for us." He stood, leaving her alone in the quiet of their living room, the sound of his footsteps echoing through the empty space. Lisa felt a surge of despair, a painful realization of the consequences of her actions. She had lost everything: her marriage, her stability, the life she had once known. As she sat in the darkness, she felt a sense of resignation, a painful acceptance of the path she had chosen. She knew that there was no going back, that the choices she had made had led her to this moment, and now she would have to face the consequences alone. The weight of her guilt settled heavily on her shoulders, a burden that she would carry with her for the rest of her life. And as she sat in the silence, she realized that the thrill of the affair, the passion she had chased, had come at a price she could never have foreseen. The days following Lisa's confession to Matt were a blur of silence and tension. She tried to talk to him, to explain herself, but he was distant, almost like a stranger in their home. He avoided eye contact, often staying late at work or slipping out early in the morning before she was awake. Lisa knew she had hurt him deeply, shattered his trust in a way that couldn't be easily repaired. The weight of her guilt was unbearable, but she forced herself to endure it, to face the reality she had created. Matt was distant, yes, but he hadn't asked her to leave. A small part of her held on to this as hope that maybe, just maybe, he would eventually forgive her, that they could rebuild the life they had once shared. But as the days turned into weeks, Lisa's hope dwindled, replaced by a hollow emptiness that gnawed at her. One evening, as Lisa sat alone in the quiet of their living room, her phone buzzed with a message from Alex. She hesitated, her heart sinking as she read the words on the screen. "I miss you. Can we meet? Just to talk." The message stirred something within her, a reminder of the passion they had shared, the thrill that had once consumed her. But as she stared at the screen, she felt a pang of guilt, a reminder of the damage she had done, the lives she had affected. She knew that meeting Alex would only complicate things further, that it would be a betrayal of the small sliver of trust that might still remain between her and Matt. But the pull was strong. She felt torn, caught between the comfort of familiarity and the allure of the unknown. The decision weighed heavily on her, a reminder of the choices that had led her to this point. With a deep breath, Lisa typed a response. Maybe. But I need to keep things low-key. I don't want to make things worse. They agreed to meet at a small, secluded cafe on the edge of town, a place where they wouldn't be recognized. As Lisa entered the cafe, her eyes scanned the room, her heart pounding as she spotted Alex sitting alone at a corner table. He looked up as she approached, his expression a mixture of relief and sadness. "Hey, Lisa," he greeted, his voice soft. "Hi, Alex," she replied, her tone subdued. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their decisions pressing down on them. Lisa felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of longing and regret that left her feeling vulnerable. "I've missed you," Alex said, his gaze steady. "I know things are complicated, but I needed to see you." Lisa looked away, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee cup. "I don't know if this is a good idea, Alex. Things with Matt are falling apart. I don't want to make it worse." Alex reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "Lisa, I know this is difficult, but I care about you, and I want to be there for you, whatever that means." His touch was warm, comforting, a reminder of the passion they had shared. But as she looked into his eyes, she felt a pang of guilt, a reminder of the damage she had caused. "I just don't know if I can keep doing this, Alex," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I don't know what I want anymore." Alex nodded, his expression understanding. "I get it, Lisa. This is a lot to handle, but whatever happens, I'm here for you." They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, sharing their fears, their regrets, their hopes for the future. For a brief moment, Lisa felt a sense of peace, a reminder of the connection they had shared. But as the sun began to set, she knew she couldn't escape the reality of her situation, the choices she had made. As they parted ways, Alex leaned in, his lips brushing against hers in a gentle, lingering kiss. For a moment, Lisa felt the familiar thrill, the spark that had drawn her to him in the first place. But as she pulled away, the weight of her guilt returned, a painful reminder of the cost of her choices. That evening, as Lisa returned home, she found Matt waiting for her in the living room. His expression was unreadable, his eyes fixed on her as she entered the room. She felt a surge of anxiety, a sense of foreboding that made her heart race. "Lisa, we need to talk," he said, his voice calm but firm. Lisa nodded, her pulse quickening. She knew this was coming, knew that the time had come to face the consequences of her actions. "Matt," she began, but he held up a hand, cutting her off. "Let me speak first," he said, his tone resolute. "I've had a lot of time to think about this, about us, and I need to know, was it worth it?" Lisa felt her heart shatter at his words, the pain in his voice a painful reminder of the trust she had destroyed. I don't know, Matt," she admitted, her voice choked with emotion. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, and I'm so sorry. I wish I could take it back." He looked at her, his gaze piercing. "But you can't, Lisa. You can't just erase what you did. You broke my trust, betrayed everything we built together." Tears slipped down her cheeks, her heart aching as she realized the depth of the pain she had caused. "I know, Matt. I know I hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." He shook his head, his expression filled with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "I don't know if that's possible, Lisa. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." The silence that followed was heavy, a painful reminder of the damage that had been done. Lisa felt a wave of despair, a sense of loss that left her feeling hollow. Maybe we need some time apart," Matt said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe we both need time to figure out what we really want." Lisa felt her heart break at his words, the reality of their separation sinking in. She had hoped, deep down, that they could find a way to heal, to rebuild the life they had shared. But as she looked into his eyes, she knew that the damage was too great, that the trust they had once shared was gone. They spent the rest of the evening in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, the weight of their decisions pressing down on them. Lisa felt a sense of resignation, a painful acceptance of the consequences of her actions. She knew that this was the end, that there was no going back. Over the next few weeks, Lisa tried to adjust to her new reality. She moved into a small apartment across town, a modest space that felt foreign and empty. The life she had once known, the comfort and stability of her marriage, was gone, replaced by a hollow emptiness that left her feeling adrift. She saw Alex occasionally, their meetings brief and strained, a painful reminder of the choices she had made. The passion they had once shared was gone, replaced by a sense of regret, a realization of the cost of their affair. One afternoon, as she was unpacking boxes in her apartment, she received a message from Alex. "I need to talk. Can we meet?" They met at a small cafe, the atmosphere tense as they sat across from each other. Alex looked tired, his expression weary, a reflection of the strain that their relationship had taken on both of them. "Lisa, I don't know if I can keep doing this," he began, his voice filled with a mixture of frustration and sadness. "I feel like we're both lost, like we don't know what we want anymore." Lisa nodded, her heart aching as she listened to his words. She knew he was right, that their relationship had become a source of pain rather than happiness. "Maybe we need some time apart," she suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I need to figure out who I am, what I really want." Alex looked at her, his expression filled with a mixture of understanding and sadness. "Yeah, maybe that's for the best." They parted ways that day, their relationship coming to an end in quiet acceptance. Lisa felt a sense of loss, a painful realization of the cost of her choices. She had risked everything for a fleeting moment of passion, and in the end, she had lost everything. As she walked back to her apartment, Lisa felt a surge of regret, a hollow emptiness that left her feeling adrift. She had sacrificed the stability of her marriage, the love of her husband, for a fleeting affair that had left her feeling empty and alone. In the quiet of her apartment, she reflected on the choices she had made, the mistakes that had led her to this point. She knew that she couldn't change the past, couldn't erase the damage she had caused. But as she sat in the silence, she made a promise to herself. She would find a way to move forward, to rebuild her life, to learn from her mistakes. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with pain and regret. But Lisa knew that she had to face it, to find a way to heal, to make peace with the choices that had led her to this moment. And as she looked out, the weeks that followed were some of the loneliest Lisa had ever experienced. Her new apartment, with its sparse furniture and bare walls, reflected the emptiness inside her. She had stepped away from her marriage, a decision made out of necessity, and had cut ties with Alex. The passion and excitement she had once felt were replaced by a hollow ache, a gnawing emptiness that reminded her of everything she had lost. Initially, Lisa tried to ignore the pain, filling her days with distractions, cleaning, organizing, small home improvement projects, anything that would keep her from confronting the mess she had made of her life. She threw herself into work, volunteering for extra projects, staying late, and avoiding social gatherings where she might have to explain her absence to mutual friends. She found herself wandering through the city on weekends, exploring parts of town she had never seen before. The city had always felt alive to her, bustling with activity and energy, but now it seemed indifferent, as if it, too, had turned its back on her. The crowds only heightened her sense of isolation, the couples walking hand in hand, the families laughing together, all reminders of the life she had once had, a life she had taken for granted. Lisa knew she couldn't keep avoiding the truth, couldn't continue running from the consequences of her actions. Slowly, painfully, she forced herself to face her mistakes, to confront the choices that had led her to this point. She began journaling, writing down her thoughts, her regrets, the moments of weakness that had driven her to betray the man who had once been her closest friend, her partner. Each night, she would sit alone in her apartment, the silence weighing heavily on her as she relived her past, her actions, the mistakes that had shattered her world. She wondered if she would ever find a way to forgive herself, if she would ever be able to move on from the pain that had consumed her. One evening, as Lisa was sorting through a box of old photos, she came across a picture of her and Matt from their honeymoon. They were on a beach, laughing, their faces glowing with the joy of a new beginning. She felt a pang of sadness as she looked at the image, a reminder of the love they had once shared, a love she had destroyed with her own hands. The photo stirred something within her, a longing to reach out to Matt, to at least apologize, to acknowledge the hurt she had caused. She knew it was a long shot, that he might not even respond, but she needed closure, a chance to make amends, even if it didn't change anything. With a deep breath, she picked up her phone and typed out a message. Matt, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I know I hurt you deeply, and I regret everything I did. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Take care of yourself. She hesitated before hitting send, her finger hovering over the button as doubt filled her mind. But she knew this was something she had to do for herself as much as for him. Finally, she sent the message, her heart pounding as she watched it disappear, unsure if she would ever receive a response. The days passed without a word from Matt, and Lisa told herself that it was for the best. She had made her peace, taken responsibility for her actions, and she couldn't expect him to forgive her. She focused on moving forward, on finding a way to rebuild her life, even if it meant doing it alone. One rainy afternoon, as she sat in a small cafe, sipping a cup of coffee and watching the raindrops trail down the window, her phone buzzed with a new message. Her heart leaped as she saw Matt's name on the screen. Lisa, thank you for your message. I've been thinking a lot too. Maybe we should meet just to talk. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that left her breathless. She had half expected him to ignore her, to shut her out entirely, but his response offered a glimmer of hope, a chance for closure, even if it was just a conversation. They arranged to meet at a small park where they used to walk together on weekends. It was a quiet spot, surrounded by trees and a small pond, a place that held memories of simpler times, of laughter and shared dreams. As Lisa arrived at the park, she spotted Matt sitting on a bench, his expression thoughtful as he looked out over the water. He looked up as she approached, his eyes meeting hers, and for a moment, they simply stared at each other, a mixture of emotions passing between them. Hi, Matt, she said softly, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and sadness. Hi, Lisa, he replied, his tone calm but guarded. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Lisa felt a surge of emotion, a longing to reach out to explain herself, but she knew that words could only do so much. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, she began, her voice trembling. I know I don't deserve it, but I needed to see you, to tell you how sorry I am. Matt looked at her, his expression unreadable. I appreciate that, Lisa, but I have to be honest, I don't know if I can ever fully understand why you did what you did. Lisa nodded, her heart aching at his words. I don't fully understand it myself, Matt. I think I was searching for something, trying to fill a void I didn't even realize was there, but it wasn't worth it. Nothing was worth losing you. He looked away, his gaze fixed on the water as he spoke. I thought we were happy, Lisa. I thought we had something real. We did, she whispered, her voice barely audible, and I ruined it. I know that now. They sat in silence, the pain of their shared past hanging between them like a shadow. Lisa felt the weight of her guilt, the regret that had haunted her since the day she had betrayed him. She knew that there was nothing she could say to make it right, but she hoped, deep down, that he might find a way to understand. Finally, Matt turned to her, his expression softened. I've been angry, Lisa, so angry, but I also realized that maybe we both played a part in this. I was so focused on my work, on providing, that I didn't see what you were going through. Lisa felt a tear slip down her cheek, a mixture of relief and sorrow filling her. I should have talked to you, Matt. I should have told you how I was feeling, instead of turning to someone else. He nodded, his gaze filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. Maybe. But what's done is done. We can't change the past, Lisa. All we can do is learn from it. They sat in silence, the weight of their shared pain finally easing as they found a sense of closure, an understanding that allowed them to move forward, even if it meant going their separate ways. Over the following months, Lisa focused on rebuilding her life, finding solace in small moments, in the quiet strength she had discovered within herself. She took up new hobbies, joined a local book club, and slowly began to reconnect with old friends, people she had distanced herself from in the chaos of her double life. She found comfort in the routines of her new life, the simple joys of cooking a meal for herself, of curling up with a good book, of taking long walks through the city. She had once feared loneliness, but now she found a sense of peace in her solitude, a chance to reflect on the choices she had made, on the lessons she had learned. Lisa knew that the scars of her past would never fully heal, that the pain of her mistakes would linger as a reminder of the cost of her actions. But she also knew that she had grown, that she had found a strength within herself that she hadn't known existed. One evening, as she sat on the balcony of her apartment, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had faced her mistakes, had taken responsibility for her actions, and though the road had been painful, she had found a way to move forward, to rebuild her life on her own terms. She knew that forgiveness from Matt, from herself, would be a long journey, a path that would require patience and resilience. But she was willing to take that journey, to learn from her past, and to build a future that was true to herself. And as she sat alone, the sounds of the city filling the quiet of the night, Lisa realized that she was no longer running from her past, no longer hiding from the truth of who she was. She had faced her mistakes, had found a way to make peace with her choices, and though the scars would remain, she was finally ready to move forward, to embrace the life that lay ahead. For the first time in a long time, Lisa felt free.